Donald Trump is still banned from Facebook. The left are now using a different word for segregation. And we have an update on the Rayshard Brooks shooting. And I have a lot to say about that. Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Before we get into our lead story today, please take a moment right now to hit that like button. It really does help the channel, and it really does push the YouTube algorithm to push my video out there to viewers who have not seen my content or my channel. And if you want to support a new conservative talk show like the Bald Brad Show, and if you enjoy these types of shows, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, but also the bell notification button so you're notified whenever we go live, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That means 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with that being said, our lead story of the day does not come from the Daily Wire or Blaze Media, but it comes from The Hill, and it is titled Trump's Facebook Ban to Stay in Place, Board Rules. Facebook's ban on former President Trump's account will continue following a decision issued by an independent oversight board on Wednesday. Facebook didn't even utilize their own people for this. They used an independent board to judge something that they did. So they had the tenacity to ban Trump on their own accord, but when it comes to unbanning him, they're not going to do it under their own accord. They're going to have somebody else do it. Just lovely. Makes a ton of sense. The board found that in maintaining an unfounded narrative of electoral fraud and persistent calls to action, Mr. Trump created an environment where a serious risk of violence was possible. Get out of here. No, he didn't. He did not. This right here it's fake news, right? It's bull crap on why they banned the guy for this. And by the way, even if he said something you didn't like or agree with, he still has the right to say it. There's a thing called in this country free speech. Big tech doesn't believe that. They'll look in your face and tell you they believe it. They'll look you in the face and say that they're not banning people based on what they say. But at the end of the day, they're lying to you. They're banning people because they don't like them, because they don't like that they're conservative, because they don't like that they have conservative thought and all these things. And you know, it kind of shows their true colors in the sense that they're having an independent board go do their dirty work when they can't do their dirty work for themselves. So it says it all right there. They have no intention of upholding free speech. They have only the intention of getting rid of conservative thought and dismantling the conservative ideas. While the board did uphold the suspension, it also found that the indefinite suspension was not appropriate. So if it wasn't appropriate, then why didn't you unban him? That's what doesn't make sense in this whole story. Look, we thought that it wasn't appropriate. We thought, hey, that your terms were kind of loosey-goosey, but we're going to keep him banned. Then we're going to send this all back to you to come up with different ideas of how you regulate this and how you treated other people, meaning having precedents of what happened. And then we'll bring it back our way, and then we'll judge on it again, when you could just take care of this right now. The panel is requesting that Facebook review the decision to develop a proportionate response that is consistent with the rules that are applied to other users of its platform. Meaning they're looking at this going, look, how do you treat other users very similar to what you did with Donald Trump? Meaning, do other users that use kind of quote-unquote violence, even though I don't think it was violent, but do you treat other users the same way that you taught or treat Donald Trump? Do you treat them by banning them? They don't, by the way. They don't. There's a lot of crazy crap on Facebook. Same with Twitter. Same with all the other social media platforms. But they want to target the president, which we'll get to in a moment. Within 6 months of this decision, Facebook must re-examine. 6 months. They're going to keep them banned for even longer. So basically an entire year. Must re-examine the arbitrary penalty it imposed on January 7th and decide the appropriate penalty. Oversight Board co-chair Michael McConnell told reporters Wednesday that there is a substantial possibility that whatever decision Facebook ultimately makes on Trump's account would be kicked back to the panel. Facebook executive Nick Clegg confirmed that Trump will remain suspended while the platform reviews the initial decision. We will now consider the board's decision and determine an action that is clear and proportionate. Why didn't you do that to begin with? Why didn't you do that in the onset of all this happening? Isn't that what you normally do when you make decisions? You kind of look at presidents, you kind of look at your policies and see how you treated other people, but yet you want to treat possibly Trump differently, especially a sitting president? That's odd to me. That is very odd. And by the way, again, this is me being nitpicky on people's guidelines. you should not have banned him in the first place based under free speech. If you truly believe free speech, it all goes, right? Even things you disagree with. There's a lot of things I disagree with on Facebook. There's a lot of things I disagree with on Twitter. There's a lot of things I disagree with on Instagram. There's a lot of things I disagree with on Facebook. There's a lot of things I disagree on media. But everybody has a right to say it, and I will stand up for the right to say it. And our country is going in a very dangerous direction. Almost terrifying direction at this point. Steven Crowder's been talking about it. Ben Shapiro's been talking about it. It's been one of those things that isn't being spoken out loud too much, but it's starting to. What I mean by that is people are starting to say, this is getting a little scary now. Look, politics is all fun and games. We like to poke fun at each other, fight back and forth with our words and slandering other people, which you shouldn't do. But this is getting actually scary now at this point. I like to joke around with politics as well, but look, if you can ban a sitting president or a president of the United States or even a former president, that's when things get scary. Big tech does not care about free speech. They'll look you again in your eyes and they'll tell you that they care. Their mentality for this, by the way, this is what they're coming to. So, prime example, if you're looking at Facebook or Twitter, they're saying, look, even if we deplatform them, even if we ban them from our outlets, they still have other platforms to go to get their speech out there. So we're not getting rid of their free speech. They still have other opportunities. That's not what we're talking about. You are getting rid of their free speech because we're talking about it in terms of your platform. In terms of your platform, everybody should have a right to free speech. Everybody should have a right to say basically whatever the hell they want. But if you ban them from your site based on their speech, you don't believe in free speech because you ban them based on their speech per your context of your outlet, your social media, just that context. Can they go somewhere else and talk? Well, no shit, man. Hell, they can go talk to their own family, their friends. They can walk down to the diner down the street and talk to the coworkers. You're always going to be able to talk to somebody behind closed doors, but the whole purpose is free speech out there to talk to other people, to talk about ideas. The second you get rid of that, social fabric crumbles. The country crumbles. Big tech doesn't see that. Conservatives understand that. The left don't. Democrats don't. That is why the right, the conservatives, the Republicans are considered patriots. They're going to be the Minutemen of our time if the country keeps going in this direction, because we're not going to have a country anymore at some point. Because the government is going to get too big, and then we got to stand up and do all the other crap, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully it never happens. But by the way, that's the whole purpose of the Second Amendment. It's not for hunting. It's for if the government rises up against us. But, they're tackling that too, and I'll touch on that in a moment here. A spokesperson for Trump did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The decision will leave Trump with limited ways to reach the public in the same way he did while president. Trump has been issuing statements to the press via email, and while many of them have been shared on social media widely, his reach and dominance over news cycles has clearly diminished. And by the way, that's not that bad of a thing of he's not in the news cycle, because now CNN's ratings are plummeting even further. So all these leftist media outlets that were running on Trump's coattails are basically failing left and right. I mean, you're having YouTubers that are getting more views and clicks than CNN is as a whole. I mean, Nickelodeon, Nick at Night gets more views than some of CNN's anchors do, or shows. Hell, people are sleeping at the time. Who the hell watches Nickelodeon at night anymore? I mean, I enjoy it every now and then, but the fact that it's getting more views than CNN says volumes to how the American public views mainstream media. Now, to come back to the First and Second Amendment thing, look, you banning a 45th president, or any president for that matter, is dangerous because they're going to come after you. But they're not just coming after the First Amendment, guys. Democrats on the left are coming after the Second Amendment with these gun control laws, with these regulations that are put in place, which I don't believe in as a whole, by the way. And I'll expand on that in future episodes. The longer you get to know me and my show, you'll get to know my viewpoints. Again, they're very similar to Ben Shapiro. Basically, everything that I talk about is almost directly in line with Ben Shapiro, which is why I enjoy him so much. But what I'm saying here is that it's comma in the article, then infringement in the amendment, right? Comma, infringement. What they're doing incrementally, and this is a very wise way to get rid of the Second Amendment over time. It might take 50 years, it might take 100 years, but it's going to happen if they keep this up. Incrementally, they're infringing on your rights to bear arms. They're going to look at you very similar to big tech does. I'm not going to get rid of your free speech. I'm not denying you your free speech. We're going to ban you, but I'm not denying you, right? They're going to say the same thing with gun rights, and they already are. for gun control. They're saying, we're not getting rid of the Second Amendment. We're not going to take your guns. We're not going to have buyback programs. We're not going to confiscate weapons. They're going to look you straight in your face and tell you something that they're going to do, but they're going to tell you that they're not going to do it. So they're doing one thing and telling you another thing, and it's constant. You know who's going to back them up is the media. So you can't trust the media. You got to go to outlets like mine, Bald Brad Show, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, to get this kind of stuff out there. I'm not looking to lie to you guys. Even if I made money on YouTube, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I do this mainly for myself, to record my thoughts over time, see if where I'm being hypocritical out, but also get conservative thought out to people so hopefully they can change their viewpoint as well. So I'm not looking to spin stories here. I'm not looking to make conservatives look good. I'm not looking just to hound Democrats, which it always seems like I'm doing, because quite frankly, they're destroying this country from the inside out. If they weren't destroying the country from the inside out, then I wouldn't really have much to talk about, would I? And I probably wouldn't have a show. But the fact that they're constantly doing this, I'm going to constantly report on it then, because they're attacking probably the most two important amendments that we have. That's probably why they're the first two. So, you know, this is some dangerous stuff, guys. It is terrifying. You get rid of that first two amendments, you don't have a country. That's plain and simple. And I don't know if anybody that would disagree with that other than the Democrats and the left. I think all conservatives and Republicans would agree. The fact that when you lose the first two amendments, you lose number one, number two, First Amendment, Second Amendment, game over. Country gone, never coming back again. And by the way, guys, for our democracy in a republic, it's not like democracies and republic last forever. If you look through the course of history, we are by far an outlier for still existing as a nation under the idea of democracy in a republic. Like, we are far outliers. So the fact that we've made it this long is truly astonishing. And what I'm trying to say is there's a great possibility here that as time goes on, that democracy and republic is going to crumble at some point if we start, especially going in this kind of trajectory. And it's unfortunately, I love the joke again about politics, but this is not a joke. This is actually where I think things are going. And you're starting to see people like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder kind of slowly come out and starting to say that, where it's like, look, I don't know if I have much freedom anymore. I don't know if this country is going to exist in the next, 50 to 100 years plus. And you Democrats are going to be like, well, that's crazy. That's conspiracy theories. That's not going to happen. That's the exact problem. And that's the exact problem that we saw in history. They said the same exact crap. Well, that's not going to happen. The government's not going to rise up against us. Why in God's name would they do that? Joe Biden said, we are the government. The people are the government. No, you're not. You're not. The people are not the government. You have a separate set of rules that you need to abide by. You're there to represent us. You are not us. Okay? Plain and simple. But that's what people said throughout history. Oh, well, the government's there to help us. They're there to support us. They're there to do everything for us. Meaning you're giving them power. You're giving them too much responsibility. At some point, that power is going to expand beyond your control, and now you're screwed. And you're going to be even more screwed when that First and Second Amendment's gone, because now you can't protect yourself. Now you can't rise up and change things. Now you can't actually be the people. You can't be we the people. So this is some serious crap, guys, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but if we keep going in this direction, it's very bad as far as historical terms on where countries have gone. Again, and I'm basing that data too on the fact that we are an outlier, which means that we have a higher probability statistical chance of crumbling like those other nations did, and history is repeating itself. So you better hold on to those right to bear arms. You better hold on to those weapons, folks, because in the next 100+ years, you want to be able to pass that down to your family members, because they need to have a right to protect themselves, because at some point, government's going to get too damn big here. And then we got a whole other shabola on our hands. Hopefully things switch around. And that's why we need prayer, guys. We need prayer. You need to pray for this president. You need to pray for the Democrats so they can figure it out. You need to obviously pray for Republicans. You need to pray for your fellow brother, your fellow neighbor, but also this country that we have, because we are in some serious times at the moment. And normally I don't go all apocalyptic on you, and I don't think things are getting apocalyptic, even though it sounds that way. It's just what I'm saying is that we're at the beginning stages of no return. And I do mean that. And I don't think I'll look back on this later and really change my mind unless things change, like Trump comes back in office, or you got Ron DeSantis, or you have even a Democrat come back in the office that actually holds up the principles of the United States of free speech, will defend our police, defend our rights, all those things. But I'm just not seeing it from the left. I'm seeing the left become more radical over time, whereas the right has generally stayed the same. I mean, we've changed in some ways, but we're pretty much the same party that we've been for a while. Again, things have changed. I'm not going to go into that on this episode. But speaking of the left doing crazy things and kind of even going further left, meaning the Democrats, is we have an article here by the Daily Wire. If you're not already a member, please go over and become a subscriber today. We need to support conservatives all across the board. It is worth the money to help them out. I understand that they're there for profit as well, but they do get conservative thoughts out there. And there's a reason why the Daily Wire is one of the most trafficked media sites out there. I mean, they're getting triple the amount of clicks and views a month than what CNN's getting. I think CNN's getting like 33 million. Or no, maybe I think it's 23 million. And then Daily Wire is getting 74 million a month. So completely blowing them out of the water. But this says affinity groups, the left's new term for segregation. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this article is, one, it came out and I want to talk about it. But two, I said this exact statement, I believe it was in yesterday's show or the day before, where you had these, I think it was, oh God, what was it? It wasn't Minneapolis, but it started with an M. Maybe it was Wisconsin. It was one state that had a high school that was segregating parents based on race, and we've seen this in the university systems. We've seen this in high schools as well, and so as well as middle schools, is segregating people based on race. But they're not calling it that. They're not calling it segregation anymore. They're calling it affinity groups. And the reason why they're doing that is because they know that if they call it segregation, it looks bad. But, you know, the Democrat Party, like I've said all the time, they're the party of the Ku Klux Klan. They're the party of racism, guys. They don't want to admit that because of revisionist history. They're talking about some big switch that happened. And I always say, go read Dinesh D'Souza's books. He does a great job of explaining the fact that that's all BS. They are the party of racism. They are the party that started and carried it through. And they don't want to admit it, but here they are doing racist things again, and now they're just changing the language, which only supports the fact that they are a racist party. I'm not saying every Democrat's racist. I think that's crazy, but they do racist things. Whereas you look at the right, I'm not sure what we do that's racist. Honest to God, I mean that in all seriousness. If you find something that we do racist, let me know so I can cover it. But the crap, I don't see Republicans or conservatives segregating people on race. Matter of fact, conservative thought and ideology doesn't care about your race at all. We're about the individual. So even our ideology, what we think, conservative thought, is all based on the individual. It has nothing to do with your race. It has everything to do with your intellect and your actions. The Democrats and the left, on the other hand, is all about the collective. Very similar to socialism, communism, all the isms. They're all about the collective, the tribalistic selection, right? Putting people into groups and categorizing people into groups, which is called affinity groups. But when you start making it about race, it's no longer affinity group, folks. It's about racism. And that's what the Democrats are doing, which is odd because didn't we want to get rid of segregation before? Didn't we spend a whole civil rights movement on that and finally eradicate it? But now we're flip-flopping back to doing it. And by the way, just a little odd, the party that was previously the party of racism is the ones doing it. Little odd, there's no self-reflection for the Democrats and the left at this point. Again, I'm not talking about every single Democrat, but look, when a party's doing it as a whole and it's consistent, I'm going to start saying, look, this is a little bit racist. This is going in the wrong direction. You need to change it. Now, if you change it, it's not racist. If you go back to just treating people like individuals and not based on race or anything, hey, we're good. But I don't see that happening because it's just getting worse year after year. But this says, if ever a leftist policy has an unpopular term or connotation attached to it, progressives simply rename it and pretend things are different. Abortion turns people off. Call it choice. Illegal immigrant sounds bad. Call them undocumented workers. People don't like riots. Call them peaceful protests. No one supports a death tax. Call it an estate tax. So these are great examples of how the left changed the narrative. They changed terms to make it seem like it's more appeasing. It makes it seem like it's more acceptable. But if you look under the hood, folks, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And by the way, look under the hood, no pun intended. I mean, kind of a little bit of a Klan reference there on what they're doing. But I've tried to laugh because if I laugh, I'm going to completely start coughing everywhere, and I don't want to do that into the mic. I'm holding it together. One of the latest examples can be found in education, the business world and government training programs called affinity groups. On its face, there's nothing seemingly wrong with the term. Affinity groups have been around for centuries, typically involving people who naturally organize into groups based on shared characteristics and interests, which is fine. Now, there could be some discrimination in that as well, but it's how you treat these groups and it's how you select these groups that are going to dictate whether it's racist or segregation, or if it's just discrimination, or if it's just, look, you're just basing people off, maybe you all have the same colored shirt or the same colored hat, or, you're Republican or Republican, conservative, Democrat, liberal, whatever it's going to be. So some examples here are: think of the Freemasons or sororities to something more nebulous like your friend group. People have been sorting themselves into group for as long as humans have existed, but a certain type of affinity group has risen into the past decade or so, one that isn't about people coming together, but about separating people based on one specific characteristic, which is skin color. This used to be called segregation, but that term rightfully brings up negative feelings, so it has now been rebranded under the guise of affinity groups. And this is what you see when the culture is dominated by the left. Is they're good at rebranding things. They're good at changing things. They're good at making things seem nice on the outside, but when you dive deeper into it, you see how bad it is. And this is something I've talked a lot on the show, is that we have a massive issue in our country where we have headlines that just say bad things, or we have stuff that says peacefully protest, but they're burning down buildings. They're hurting police officers. They're destroying public and private property. Hell, they're trying to stab people at times. They're hurting people. All these things are happening, but in the headline is that it just says it's a peaceful protest, and so people are totally cool with it. Because what is happening is people are not doing the work. They're not taking the time out of their day to go in and research to see if what that person's telling them is true or not. Almost every conservative that I know, that I listen to, the Hodge twins, Steven Crowder, ABL, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Dan Bongino, Matt Walsh, Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles, Dinesh D'Souza, all these guys and gals that I'm talking about all say, look, do your own research. Don't just believe everything that I say. I could slip up on the show. The statistic that I'm using could be old. All these things, we're freely telling you don't believe everything that we say. Go out and read a ton of articles. There's a reason why I use Daily Wire so much and Blaze Media, is because they support it, what they write, with other news outlets. So it stops me from... It basically has a one-stop shop for me in doing the show very roughly, I guess, easily. But, today I went to The Hill. A lot of times I look at CNN. You guys see me utilize The Guardian before. You've seen me use MSNBC. So there's other sites that I go to and I read up what they have to say. And then when I do the show, I talk about what they say sometimes. I'll say, hey, this is what they're going with. This is the narrative that they're trying to spin. This is what they're talking about. I don't do it all the time. But you have here the Democrats and the left openly segregating people at this point. And all they're saying, well, we're not doing that. We're just using affinity groups. We're not segregating anybody, but they are. So this is kind of the whole theme of today's show, and I hope you're seeing it. We're not getting rid of the First Amendment. We're not banning you for free speech. We're not getting rid of your free speech rights. We're not getting rid of your guns. We're not going to take away your weapons. You're going to have a right to defend yourself. You don't need an AR-15 to do that. You can use a knife. Who needs a knife? I can't do it because I'm gonna lose my voice. But you get what I'm saying here? We're not segregating anybody. We're using affinity groups. See, this change in terms is very scary because people are gonna think that it's nice because, again, they don't take the wherewithal to do the research on it. Guys, you need to take time to do the research, and I know all of you do. The viewers of this, conservatives tend to do the research, as the Democrats and the left that don't. It goes on to say, one can tell that the basis for the separation is nefarious when one's skin color is signaled out for shaming and derision. The Daily Wire has covered numerous examples of this. At the end of the Trump administration, the Department of Education determined that affinity groups separated by race were a form of segregation. Hell, finally the Department of Education does something correct, because again, it is. But it says here, racial affinity groups are used in both K through 12 and higher education institutions across the nation. They separate students and staff by race in hopes of giving black people a safe space to discuss their experiences with racism, while providing a separate space for white people to learn about their white privilege, which is astonishing, which is racist, by the way. And there's the fact that you're segregating people to have a safe space to have a discussion. That is just mind-blowing. You're having a conversation. There might be things that you thought were racist that probably weren't racist. It's good ideas, by the way, or good idea to have other people with different viewpoints in the room and going like, oh, well, this officer, was giving me a hard time, and I had my hands on the steering wheel 10 and 2, and my family told me because I'm, a person of color that I have to have my hands on a 10 and 2 and abide by the officer's rules so I don't get shot and killed and all this crazy crap. Look, I would sit there as a white person and say, hey, my father was a cop. He told me to do the same thing. If an officer pulls you over, have your hands 10 and 2. Be respectful of him. Be kind to him. all these things. It's not, and tell them it's not due to the race. Look, officers treated me poorly too. I still told the guy to have a nice day and thank you for your service. So it's like, you would look at that and be like, maybe it wasn't based on racism. Maybe the guy just had a really shitty day. Maybe somebody just got done trying to kill the guy. Maybe a white guy got done trying to kill the guy, and now his next stop of the day was you, and he's pissed about it because he almost fucking died, and he almost didn't get to see his kids grow up anymore. Seems like a pretty damn good reason to me to be a little pissed off, and he might be taking it slightly out on you with nothing to do with race and a little bit to do with just the fact that you're doing an idiotic thing and he had to pull you over for it when you could just be abiding the law and driving like a normal person. But you can't have those talks, guys, because it's not safe space. You're too rude. You're not kind. You're not feeling them. You're not understanding them. You're not a person of color, so you haven't been in their shoes. You can't do research to ever be in their shoes. You can't comprehend what they've been through. Look, you can comprehend what struggles somebody has. You don't have to go through somebody's struggles to understand it. Now, you could say, like, to fully maybe understand something at times. There's certain scenarios that would be helpful to go through, maybe like war, maybe the theater of war. Maybe having the feeling of pain, things like that we all get. But everybody, look, somebody's been racist to me before. So to say, like, I don't understand racism, I don't understand police, all this stuff, it's just silly to me. It's just silly. You need spaces where everybody can talk together. So you don't need safe spaces. You don't need to divide people based on race, because you know what? Everything that you deal with in your life has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with culture. And the more ideas will help you become a better person at the end of the day. But the left don't think that. So watch out, folks. They're changing the terms. They're changing the language. It's no longer segregation. It's affinity. So truly astonishing that we're basically reverting back to where we were 60 years ago, but the left don't want to agree with that. The Democrats don't want to agree with it. Joe Biden doesn't want to agree with it. Nobody in the Biden administration wants to deal with it or agree with it. Either one of them at the end of the day, but whatever. So our last story here is an update on the Rayshard Brooks shooting. This comes from Fox News. It is titled "Firing of Atlanta Police Officer Who Pulled Trigger is Reversed." Now, I wasn't even on YouTube when this happened, but when I saw the video, I was like, good shoot. It's a good shoot. The guy wrestled you to the ground. The guy took your one of your firearms. I'm going to call a taser a firearm because it fires out a taser. And if you get hit with that, you're immobilized. The guy could take your gun. Hell, he's going to shoot you and he's going to shoot your partner. And now you're both dead. Now you both don't get to grow up. Now you both don't get to see your family. Now you both don't get to see your loved ones because the one guy wanted to be quote unquote driving drunk or quote unquote under the influence and wanted to act like an idiot. And they want to say this is racism and go burn down a Wendy's afterwards because that's going to show them how unjust this was. And it's going to show that their anger is justified and that they mean business according to Maxine Waters and all this other crap that we've been putting up with for a freaking decade now, at least by 1992, of these crazy riots happening, lighting buildings on fire. And by the way, it's happening Democrat-ran states. It's happening in leftist states. Now, does some of this stuff a little bit happen in conservative? Absolutely. But we hammer it down. You think Ron DeSantis is going to allow this crap to happen? There's a reason why he passed the anti-riot bill. Heck, today he just gave police officers in the state a $1,000 bonus. Good for him. Hell yeah. That's what we need all states to do. Support our police. We're not defunding them. We need to give them more money. The crap they put up with, they sacrificed their lives. Give them more money for policing. Give them the stuff they need. Hell, I'll pay good taxes for that. That's what the government's for. Protecting us. That's where our money should be going, not this infrastructure crap of you wanting to pay for daycare and nationalized paid leave and all this other crap and call it infrastructure, Joe Biden. I don't need to go on another rant like I did yesterday because my voice really took a toll from yesterday. Whew. If you missed yesterday's show, folks, it was a spicy one. I got into it. Bald Brad got a little pissed. You don't want to piss me off, Joe. And that wasn't even half of it, man. I was like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going on a little bit long with this. You don't want to talk about that segment. I was going to start pulling up statistics, about 20 of them, but I figured you guys might be a little bit taken aback by it because it's the first time I've ever done that. But I'll tell you what, I'm always locked and loaded with facts, my friends. Facts don't care about your feelings, quote Ben Shapiro. Thank you, brother. Moving on here, it says I'm going to restart this article here. But again, this is talking about the Rayshard Brooks shooting. But it says the firing of former Atlanta police officer who's charged with murder in the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks has been reversed. Garrett Rolfe, I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, like I do with all people, was fired in June, a day after he shot Brooks in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant, which ended up being a Wendy's. And shout out to Wendy's. I've had food poisoning twice from them. I don't go there anymore, but their Frosties are amazing. The Atlanta Civil Service Board on Wednesday released its decision of Ralphie's appeal of his firing. Due to the city's failure to comply with several provisions of the code and the information received during witnesses' testimony, the board concludes the appellant was not afforded his right to due process. The board said in its decision, according to news outlets. Therefore, the board grants to appeal of Garrett and revokes his dismissal as an employee of the APD. Police responded June 12th to complaints that Brooks had fallen asleep in his car in the drive-thru lane of Wendy's restaurant. He fell asleep in a drive-thru lane, guys. But there was nothing wrong, right? There's nothing suspicious to pull him over. He was pulled over strictly because he was black, guys, because the police are systemically racist. Didn't you know that? He did nothing wrong. There's nothing odd going on. There's nothing weird. And you talk to people, what's wrong with him falling asleep in a drive-thru Wendy's? That's completely normal. Everybody does that. Guys, when was the last time you ever saw somebody fall asleep in a drive-thru? I've never seen it, and that's anecdotal, but let me know. I mean, heck, we're reaching probably 1,000 plus people in this video. Where? I've never seen it. It's odd. It's suspicious. Nothing to do with your race. Hell, if a white guy, I don't care what you look like. If I rolled up on a freaking alien falling asleep, it'd be weird. Granted, it's an alien. Still weird that you're falling asleep in a drive-thru lane. Hell, get your Wendy's and get the hell out of the lane and pull over and fall asleep there. Plenty of parking spaces, by the way, if you saw the video. Plenty of parking spaces. So if you was sleepy, got a little sleepy like Joe Biden, pull over into a lane, go into a nice, beautiful parking spot. Huge, beautiful, lovely, right? All those things. Go to sleep there, man. You don't need to fall asleep in a freaking drive-thru. It goes on to say, body cam footage shows a 27-year-old black man struggling with two white not struggling, man. He was fighting them. He literally brought them to their knees after they told him he had too much to drink to be driving and tried to arrest him. Brooks grabbed a taser from one of the officers and fled, firing at the officer as he ran. So I recall in the video, it's been a while, he turned around and fired his taser at the officer. You forfeit your life at that point. I'm sorry, you do. Now, a taser, I don't recall if it's considered a lethal weapon or not. I don't care. You fired at him as an opportunity to immobilize a police officer where you could take their firearm and kill them and others. That's the same thing, by the way. If you're wrestling a police officer and you reach for his gun or you attempt to knock him out, you're dead, man. You deserve to die. If I ever did that to a police officer, which I would never do because I'm not an idiot, but even if I did, I would know going in, I'm forfeiting my life at this point. Now, people don't agree with that on the left or Democrats. Oh, you could have just shot him in his big toe. You could have shot him in his kneecap. You didn't got to shoot him, man. Come on. He didn't do nothing wrong. He just grabbed your taser and tried to shoot you with it. What's wrong? You don't got to kill him. You could have shot him in his finger. You could have, as he's turning, you could have hit him with his trigger finger. Why didn't you blow his trigger finger off so he couldn't shoot it? Like, this is what Hollywood does, man. These people watch Hollywood. They don't have any clue on how any of this works. But, you know, hey, this guy's a stand-up person, done nothing wrong, just was pulled over because two white police officers wanted to be racist for that day. They woke up in the morning and said, how am I going to get me some black people? How am I going to go out there and hunt some black people? Which doesn't happen. I'm being facetious. Officers don't care about your race. Do some of them racially profile? Yes. Do some of them profile people if you're driving a crappy car in a nice neighborhood? Yes. It's happened to me multiple times. Heck, it's happened to me in the neighborhood that I live in. My car that I drove since I was in high school, so you're talking like 20 years, was a piece of crap car. I mean, it worked great. It actually didn't look bad, but it was an old car. You know, it was a 2003 Honda CR-V. But, you know, when you've been driving around for 20 years, yeah, it looked clean. I kept it up. I didn't, like, destroy the car. Beside the point. I don't want you guys to think that I'm a freaking savage here. You know what I mean? Like I'm an animal. The car was nice, but when you drive an old car in a pretty nice neighborhood, it's like, what are you doing in here with that old car? Why everybody else is driving like a 2019, a 2020, like across the board, and you're driving through here with an '03. Like, what are you doing, man? So I've been pulled over for that before. You don't hear me bitching and complaining. I would rather them do that. What am I doing in that neighborhood? Oh, officer, you know I live here. Thank you for protecting and serving. Just checking me out. That's fine. Doing his job, just checking me out, make sure I'm not doing something I shouldn't be doing, or you know, possibly having paraphernalia or products, not products. Clearly, I don't deal with drugs. Just drugs in the car. You know what I mean? All that crap. Just checking me out. You know, making sure I'm not bothering anybody, making sure I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to be doing, and you know, protecting and serving the community, which is what they're hired to do. So I personally don't have a problem with profiling. Racial profiling, I do. I think that's odd. I don't think that's right. But if you're in like a trash car and you're in a nice neighborhood, it is like, what are you doing here? Hey, just pull them over, ask them, hey, like, what's going on? What are you doing in this neighborhood? Who are you trying to visit? Where are you coming from? Can I run your light? You know, all this stuff. Just protect and serve. There's nothing wrong. They're there to help the community. And if the community wants that, the community should be able to get that. And look, if a community member gets pulled over for wanting that, that's then the problem with you pushing that. And I was fine with being pulled over. It happened to me actually twice. Not a big deal. And you know what? The guys were great that pulled me over. I didn't have any issues with them. Now, the one officer that was pissed off with me, it was kind of a jerk, that was the guy that gave me that cell phone ticket, but that wasn't even in my neighborhood. That was just in Long Beach. And Long Beach is, you know, they got some rough areas over there. So that guy, I fully get. He's probably had been through some rough times. But hey, you know what? Rayshard Brooks here shooting ultimately got reversed. I think it was a good shoot. I wasn't on YouTube, so I didn't give my 2 cents when it happened. But look, again, you shoot at a police officer, you do anything to a police officer that has an opportunity of immobilizing him, you're gone. See you later, man. You got blasted. But with that being said, I'm about to lose my voice. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting the Bald Brad Show. We're over 1,200 subscribers. I think we're over 1,300 now at this point. I have the community option open now after I hit 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for that 1,000 subscribers. Let's try to share all these videos on social media, guys. Let's climb to the top here. Again, I love talking in the comments. Leave me a comment. Let me know how your day's going. Whatever you want to say to me, that's fine. Some of you guys write hilarious stuff. It really does. I really do crack up, meaning I laugh out loud actually reading your comments. Some of them, I'm like, I can't believe you wrote that in the comment section. Probably a little risky. You know, like, I'm not fully on board with what you said, but it's still funny, and I do appreciate the comment. But with that being said, folks, that is all the news I have for you today. I hope you have a lovely day. Please take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Eat healthy. Work out. Tell your family and your friends that you love them, guys. You never know what's going to happen, right, to somebody. So just give somebody a phone call, a text, and say, hey, you know what? I don't ever do this, but I just want to say I love you and I hope that you're doing well. Text an old friend, even a leftist, whoever it may be, and just text them, say, hey, you know what? I just want to let you know I love you. You were crossing my mind today. I was praying for you. Pray for people. Pray for everybody. Pray for Joe Biden. Pray for everybody, guys. Prayer goes a long way. And with that being said, God bless. Thank you so much, folks, and I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bald Brad Show.